You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
So what you gonna do?
Let me talk to you, dummies.
Oh, yeah.
You're where it's at.
If you're smart like me, you gotta listen.
And if you don't listen to it,
I'll come out of your computer and body slam your ass.
Don't be a Melvin.
I will scar you. Open your third eye.
Woo! It's gonna be cool.
Oh, what a rush.
It's showtime!
We had a lovely conversation.
To the interactive interview. Interactive wrestling radio.
The Epicenter.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this week's third Impact Wrestling Media Teleconference. This is Ross Foreman. Before we welcome Josh to the call, let's just a reminder, Josh, as you know, this Impact Wrestling Media Teleconference live stream is presented by Pluto TV. Watch over 100 channels of movies, news, sports, and more completely free on any streaming device. Download the app today. Pluto TV is free TV. And with that said, let's welcome Josh Matthews to the teleconference.
Hello, Ross. How are you?
I'm great, Josh. How are you doing?
I mean, I couldn't be better. Tonight's the night of Impact Wrestling. It all gets started in just a few hours. Go ahead. You got something to say? I know you got something to say. That's why I paused. I waited for you to go ahead and jump in there.
No, I was just going to ask you your thoughts, the home stretch heading into Slammiversary.
Well, I mean, look, we got a great show tonight. Insider term, we call this the go-home show. This is it before we get to Sunday, of course, in Toronto. So as I mentioned on our first teleconference this week on Tuesday, you're going to get Moose and Austin Aries in the same building tonight. That's the main event for Slammiversary. They will be together. So expect a confrontation between champion and challenger. The Gama Hit Squad will be in action as well. The Desi Hit Squad, led by Gama Singh, will be in action tonight. Eli Drake and Joe Hendry. That news came on ImpactWrestling.com earlier this week. Conan's going to address the OGs. A Knockouts tag team match was announced earlier today. Shotzi Blackheart and Tessa Blanchard will team up to take on Kira Hogan and Ali. And, of course, Killer Cross will be in action tonight. And then you've got Sami Callihan in his final match before Slammiversary this Sunday. So that's everything happening tonight on the show. As you guys know, we have sold out Slammiversary on Sunday, which is awesome. So a credit to all of our amazing fans around the world who helped sell out Slammiversary Sunday from the Rebel Entertainment Complex in Toronto. Tickets are still available, of course, for Monday and Tuesday, our two final nights in Toronto, Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll return August 12th and 13th for Impact Wrestling TV taping. So a lot happening. Obviously, Ross, as you know, and everyone on the call knows, we have a lot going on as we get ready to get on airplanes and make our way to Toronto. I know everyone's excited to talk to Tommy. He's got a huge match on Sunday, House of Hardcore Rules, against Eddie Edwards. So, Ross, I'll take as many calls or questions as you want, and then I'll let Tommy take over.
All right. Well, just a clarification on what you had said, August 12th and 13th, we'll be back in Toronto.
That's what I said.
All right. Well, if you have questions for Josh, we're going to have about 5 minutes for questions for Josh. So *6 to get in queue.
Q&A session has started. To ask your question, please press *6.
Hi, Josh. Thank you for your time. Ryan Keith at the Average Marks podcast, powered by the Roar Network. It's a really solid card for Slammiversary. Besides the championship match, what match do you see still in the show for the night on Sunday?
Well, I've got to go with the match that I have been proclaiming will steal the show for quite some time, and that's the International Four-Way that's set to take place. I mean, you've got four incredible athletes in that match for Sunday. You've got the return of Johnny Impact, Taji Ishimori, the Bone Soldier, Rich Swann, and Phoenix. So those four together have an opportunity Sunday to absolutely electrify and steal the show, and only one man can win. I just think that match is must see, can't miss. Those are the kind of wrestling matches that made me a wrestling fan as a kid. That these guys will do incredible things, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what they bring to the table on Sunday. That's a match that you just want to sit back and watch. And then, of course, you have the emotional matches taking place, the matches like Mask versus Hair and matches like Tommy versus Eddie. So I think the build to all of these matches have been incredible from just a performance standpoint. I'm really looking forward to the four-way, though.
Agreed. Thank you.
Hey, Josh. It's Morgan Richards here from Radio Cardiff. How's it going?
Good, thank you.
So I just wanted to talk to you about the recent news that Fight TV will be launching now here in the UK, and that Slammiversary will be streaming here simultaneously. How important do you think that is going to be for Impact's reach in Britain, and do you think this could really lead to more tours, big shows, or even pay-per-views across the pond for Impact Wrestling?
Well, I think so, but I think it's the most important for the fans that you get to watch Impact in the same time frame that we get to watch it over here in the States. And I know that even going back to Challenge TV when we were on that network, and the fans always wanted to see Impact at the same time that it was on in the States. You guys didn't want to get spoilers. You didn't want to be spoiled on our own social media platforms. And now all that's taken away. So as a fan, from a fan's perspective, I think that is a win-win, that if you want to stay up late and be a part of the conversation on social media with the show, you can. You could DVR it and watch it in the morning. And then, of course, the replay that will air as well. So to me, it's all about giving the fans what you guys want, and just being able to say you can watch the show in real time, the same time that it airs in the States, I think is awesome for everybody.
Hi, Josh. This is BQ from the Impact Lounge podcast at B2 Wrestling. I don't know if this question has been asked recently because I haven't been on the last couple of calls, but how far are we away from Impact pay-per-view being streamed live on the Global Wrestling Network?
Well, I don't know. I know originally when we launched the app that was something that was being pushed towards. I think I did answer this question either earlier this week. I can't remember. But anyway, all the infrastructure that goes into setting this up, there's so much to it, right? So right now, the beauty is that we do have a great partnership with Fight TV. And, I mean, I just got done talking to the guys from Fight TV earlier today. They're super excited for Slammiversary. The players embedded right now on ImpactWrestling.com. You can pre-order right now. You can be a part of the show Sunday streaming right through the Fight TV app. So if it happens that we get the pay-per-views right on GWN, I think that's great. But, in the meantime, it's hard to downplay everything that Fight TV has done for us and with us as a partner. I think those guys are great. So having them be able to stream our shows, our pay-per-views is a great, a great opportunity for all of us.
Hi, Josh. This is Rory from Team Venom Media in the UK. I've just seen a few reports this week that Slammiversary's pretty much sold out. As far as I'm aware, that's one of the only wrestling shows this year that's actually hit capacity. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it just goes to show the great efforts that are being done in Impact right now to sell out Slammiversary, to be able to say that this show is sold out. And I don't think it's the only wrestling show that's sold out this year. I think there's been a few others. I mean, we were, if not at capacity, super close to capacity in Windsor on June 1st and June 2nd. So I think it speaks to the wrestling fans right now and how big wrestling fans, how much influence that we all have as fans to sell out a show on Sunday, to sell out shows across the country and in Toronto. It's a feel-good moment, and I think I took about 4 seconds yesterday to say, oh, cool, this graphic's done, we're sold out. What can we do for Monday and Tuesday? So, you're always just trying to push the ball down the field as much as you can.
Josh, we got one more question for you.
Okay.
Hey, Josh, how you doing? This is Jeff from iSpot Podcast and iSpotPodcast.com. a lot of companies are creating, the buzz, and you guys take center stage this Sunday. How great is it for you guys to, maybe have turned the page? Do you believe that Impact Wrestling has turned the page where this is so much buzzworthy the news that Slammiversary is making?
I don't know if I like the expression "turn the page." I get what you're saying. I think we just have to keep turning the page, right? Like, you can't ever rest on your laurels. You have to keep moving forward and keep doing everything that you can, and you can't rest for a day. It's like you look at next week, and it's like, okay, well, once Tuesday's over, we're back in Toronto on the 12th and 13th. So what are we going to do on those days? What are we going to do for the show that airs after Slammiversary? Like, this is, I told Scott Demore this the other night, like, I go to bed knowing that the work's never done. So once you can realize that, like, your work is never done, then you can kind of sleep a little bit better, because you know that you're going to wake up and it's there again. And if you, the day that you say, I don't have any more, like, then I think that's a bad thing. So there's always work to be done, even after Slam, even after Sunday and being sold out. There's still work to be done Monday and Tuesday. There's still work to be done in August. So that's just the way I approach it.
All righty, Josh. Well, always good talking to you, and I will see you Saturday up in Toronto.
Yeah, Ross, I can't wait to see you.
Well, in fact, we should probably take some photos on Twitter.
All right, you got Tommy Dreamer waiting on the line, and you're playing ha-ha with me.
Goodbye, Josh.
Bye.
That said, let's welcome our special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, the hardcore legend, Tommy Dreamer. Welcome to the teleconference.
Thank you for having me. My first teleconference in a long, long-ass time. Haven't done one of these since WWE days, so pretty cool.
It's a pleasure to have you, and certainly excited for Slammiversary. Step in the ring with Eddie Edwards. Hardcore rules.
Absolutely. Anytime stepping in a ring is my favorite time. To still be competing at this age at such a high level, I really have Terry Funk to credit, because he was the one who told me that you don't keep evolving and changing with the business, it will pass you by. And that's why he was doing moonsaults into the crowd in his 50s. So I still got 8 more years till my moonsaults into the crowd.
So let me ask you, what are your thoughts and emotions heading into this very personal match with Eddie?
Eddie, I was probably one of the biggest Eddie Edwards fans of his talent. He was the Ring of Honor champion. He was the Impact champion. He was on a course for greatness. He sidestepped what could have been a massive, serious injury with Sami Callihan hitting him in the face with the baseball bat. And he became obsessed with Sami and ending Sami. And I was just trying to help him, and he was just so obsessed. Today's day and age where everything you do is nitpicked, especially on social media, where, you could get arrested for, or at least called in for a domestic violence cause, or even he would try to chair shot poor Sami Callihan to the head in a match that we had. And I was like, dude, it's over. Move on. Go towards the title. And just became obsessed with him. And then even to the ridiculous point of accusing me of sleeping with his wife, which is pretty funny, because I don't know if most people have seen me lately. That's not saying much for your wife's, what your wife likes, I guess. But, so this has become very, very personal. I was just trying to help him. He messed with me on my own show at House of Hardcore events. So we're going to have a throwback feud, because him and Sami really reminded me of myself and Raven. And I was just trying to be the helping hand, but kind of backfired on me. And I'll show him at Slammiversary why I'm the Innovator of Violence.
Well, Tommy, we do have a room full of media waiting to talk to you, but I do have one final question for you. Slightly off the wrestling front, but I do want to ask your second love, baseball. We have Curtis Granderson coming to Slammiversary, going to be the title holder for the main event with Austin and Moose. Your thoughts about that?
Good friends with Curtis Granderson. Met him a bunch of times. He actually got me tickets when he played for the Yankees. He was good friends with Rhino when he played with Detroit. He does amazing work with charities. He has his own charity. As a baseball fan, I'm super stoked for him to be there. And I think it's vice versa for him because as a wrestling fan, he's going to be super psyched to be there. It adds to the match. I don't know if I'd have him as the belt holder. I think I would have him hold the baseball bat and swing it at Sami Callihan and see who could swing harder.
All righty. Well, with that, we will open it up for media questions for Tommy. *6 to get in queue. Media, when you get in there, please identify yourself, your media outlet, and one question and one question alone for Tommy.
If you'd like to ask a question, your request has been received. You may now ask your question.
Hey, Tommy, it's James from Interactive Wrestling Radio. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. I've been watching you since the Savoldi days, so I'm a big, long-term fan.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, so my question was going to be about the Eddie Edwards character. It's actually funny, early on when he did his invasion of Ohio versus everything, the promo he cut gave me chills. It reminded me of watching you cut promos in ECW in the backstage segments. Has the evolution been happenstance? Was it an accident, or were we building to this long before any of us knew it?
I think it just happened. Honestly, if you look at even early Eddie Edwards, clean-cut babyface, we have now seen a different side of him. If he grows a goatee, maybe that'll help him, and if his ass gets a little bigger, maybe he'll become the next Tommy Dreamer. But he has more talent, in-ring ability than I ever had. And it's funny now, looking at myself, or even looking at myself in the mirror, I'm losing my hair. I'm getting these bags under my eyes. And I remember back in the day, I used to punch myself in my eyes because I wanted to have that tough look that Terry Funk had. And I didn't know that was something called old age. And I look at myself and I was like, man, if I grew my hair out a little bit and whatever I have left and put a bandana around my head, I could start looking like Terry Funk. I don't know if Eddie Edwards wants to start looking like me, but yes, there has been a definite evolution. I've always been a big fan of his, from, like I said, from Ring of Honor to Impact Wrestling, and then, him and the Wolves were an amazing tag team, and then the opportunity to break out on his own. And I saw a lot of me in him, kind of, what Terry Funk said he saw in me. So it happened, a different side of him ignited, and I want to say a money side of him ignited. But, then there's all right, well, now you're going to have to face me. So looking forward to that.
Thank you so much. Good luck on Sunday.
Thanks, man.
Muted.
This is Ian Carey with SEScoops.com. Tommy, in 2018, Impact has worked with companies such as Destiny Wrestling, Rise, World Series Wrestling, and for many of these promotions, their video library is added to the Global Wrestling Network. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on a streaming service offering a variety of promotions, and if you think House of Hardcore might fit into that equation at some point.
I'm already on Twitch, so I have my own streaming service. I think it's a wonderful idea for Impact Wrestling. They have offered me to do that, but I have an exclusive with Twitch where I'm getting paid for my content already. So that's why I didn't do it. And, I look at the wrestling business. A lot of times the wrestling business history will repeat itself. I don't want bad history to repeat itself in the sense of I don't want the territories to get swallowed up just like they did in the 80s. And when I say territories, there are some really good independent companies that are out there running consistent shows. If Impact was putting crappy quality on their app, then, you get what you paid for. It would be crap, but they're putting out nicely produced shows. So it's all about content. And guys, that's what Hulu wants, Netflix, what is that, Patron, something like that. They just want content, and wrestling has such an amazing fan base that it's a content that's, so watched. And, it's funny, like you said, most people don't even know what Twitch is. Impact has a Twitch channel, and Twitch has more subscribers than the WWE Network. It's just getting the word out there.
Great. Well, thanks very much.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Tommy. Jason Price from Icon versus Icon. Obviously, you've spent most of your life in the ring, and you've inspired a lot of people along the way. What does it take to make it in professional wrestling today, and to what do you attribute your longevity?
To me, to make it not just in wrestling, but for wrestling, yes, but for anything like this, it's passion. You have to have a love for this, because honestly, you're not going to make it. Everything we do in wrestling is what they tell you not to do in life. You go to a wrestling school, and Bully Ray and myself have Team 3D Academy up in Connecticut, and we tell people, fall forward and don't put your hands down. Fall backwards and don't look back. That's not normal in society. Hey, jump off of a diving board into a pool with no water. We do that from the top rope. So you have to have passion for this, but you should have that in anything that you do if you want to succeed in this. For me, longevity, I always worked out. I still work out. I know I don't look like I work out, but I try very, very hard. A lot of my body parts are not attached. I'm coming on 30 years next year doing this. I was never a guy who was into alcohol or drugs. Most I've ever drank was when I used to tag with the Sandman. But I know I don't look good, but I train really, really hard to look this bad. So I want to say a lot of guys, and I see a lot of guys that even came up with an ECW, or guys who had these amazing bodies. They have to keep up and doing it. Before he passed, I was with Bruno Sammartino, and I would talk to him a lot, and he used to still run 5 miles a week. And if you do this all the time, it just becomes your routine. So I have my routine. I do it as much as I possibly can. And I also love what I do. And I have respect. If I feel I can't go in the ring anymore, I'm not going to be one of those guys who who just hang on for a payday. I'm just going to quit. And when I say I retire, that's it. I'm done in wrestling.
Hi, Tommy. Thank you for your time. Ryan Keith of the Average Marks podcast, powered by the Roar Network. Being the innovator of violence and being in so many hardcore matches, I know you have to have a favorite weapon. What's your favorite weapon to use in a hardcore match, and why? And what's the psychology behind why? Is it the pop of the crowd, the sound it makes on your opponent, stuff like that?
Excellent question. I would like to say the Singapore cane, but for some reason, I'm the one who always brings it to the ring, but yet it always gets used on me, so I'm a bit of an idiot. Honestly, old school will never die. I have seen a lot of matches. I've seen a lot of hardcore matches. Even when I was in WWE, we were in a Singapore cane match, and they were like, well, right from the beginning, just grab the canes and hit each other. And I was like, really? And where do we go from there? It's building to whatever is given to you. Once you fight outside to the floor, the match is now escalated. And if you think about it, there's the ring apron, there's the steps, there's the guardrails, then it's the floor. Then if you reach under the ring, whatever is under there, and if it's, from a cookie sheet, which also surprisingly is the greatest noise, and for a lot of people who think it doesn't hurt, I have busted more people's heads open or have lumps on my head from cookie sheets than anything else, then to a garbage can, then to a chair, then a cane, barbed wire, thumbtacks. You just got to keep on building to it, because it's, like I said, if you start from the beginning with just killing each other, where are you going to top it? So to me, old school psychology is always best. To answer your question, the Singapore cane hurts like MFer, and a cookie sheet, as hard as I swing it, sounds like sometimes a cannon going off.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the tweet. I saw your tweet.
Hi, Tommy. This is Stephanie for Steel Chair Magazine in UK. Thank you for your time. I think I'm not going to be the only one to tell you I'm a huge fan, and for a very long time. So, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you, like you just said, you've been in the business for 30 years, and many, many, many things happened in 30 years, and mostly in the recent years. What are the evolutions that for you have been the most important, or you are the most proud of in this business? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number one, the evolution for the wrestler, in the sense of, back in the day, we used to do chair shots to the head. That was before we knew about the problems of concussions. And I used to bend steel chairs over people's heads. Same with, if someone's going to hit me, I'm not putting my hands up because I had to be tough and hardcore. The fact that even in WWE or in Impact Wrestling, if someone has a concussion, they sit them out because they know about the long-term effects. I remember once in ECW, I had 3 concussions in a week. That could have had some serious damage to me, but thankfully I'm still going. So I like that. I like the WWE has a wellness program. I know in Impact Wrestling, all the wrestlers are tested for AIDS and hepatitis. None of that stuff went on. So that evolution is great. And the evolution of social media. I've been a fan of this business since I'm 9 years old. I remember when I was trying so hard to become a wrestler, I didn't know how to do it. Now I could just Google it. But, or even talk to a wrestler or try to meet a wrestler, the only way you do it, you'd have to stand in the back of an arena at a show and pray and hope that someone just didn't be like, get out of here. So those are my 2 favorite parts of the evolution of the industry. But also that's the evolution of not only our business, but you think of football, soccer, hockey. Everything has been for the better protection of the athlete, and I actually want a few more things to happen, and I think in my lifetime they will happen.
What about women?
I'm sorry?
What about women evolution?
I think it's great. And you also got to understand, I came from ECW, where we always treated the women equally in the sense of, yes, they were, because we were different, but the women would get pile drivers. The women would get, they would fight with each other, but they were on par, super duper tough, just like the men. I mean, Beulah, Francine, Dawn Marie, Lita, Jazz. We really didn't have women matches, but they were out there in the men's corner. And yes, back then it was also, they were not only eye candy, but every one of those women were tough and took exactly what the men could give out, and they would do it back. Now with the women's revolution, I think it's phenomenal, and it's not just eye candy. And I never treated it that way. And that's why for me, like, I hired Lita, Jazz, Beth Phoenix, people who have surpassed me in their own career accolades. So I couldn't be prouder of the women out there. And but that's, again, just like I said, that's society too. So it's a good thing.
Thank you, merci, thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Tommy, we're going to go to a question that came in from John Jimenez, who would like to know, what made you want to become a pro wrestler?
What made me want to become a professional wrestler was the moment I saw it on television. It was Bob Backlund versus Bulldog Brower, who's, they say he's from Toronto, which is a nice little tie-in to Slammiversary. And I was hooked from day one. And then my father was a school teacher, and he took our family to during his spring break to Florida. and I got to see the American Dream Dusty Rhodes wrestle live. And I remember being frozen in my tracks, and it was like watching God on earth come to the ring. And the moment his match ended, I knew what I had to do in my life, and I was 10 years old. And then I was just obsessed with wrestling magazines. There was no internet, and any time I would watch it on television. And I truly have been living my dream since I've been a little kid, and then I started at 18, and I have never looked back, and I'm very, very happy I've yet to look back.
Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com here. Tommy, in the past, I think 3.5 years, you've appeared for Impact, ROH, WWE, even a couple of NXT dates. How do you go about balancing all those relationships? And have you ever actually signed with any of those? Or has it just been like handshake agreements as you work on your own thing at House of Hardcore?
No, I have not. I also would like to add Lucha Underground to that mix, and a few others. I learned a lot of lessons in my life. Everyone talks about ECW and the greatness of what was ECW, and it was. But none of us ever knew that Paul Heyman was in bed with the WWE the entire time. I saw those effects. I had to live with those effects for a long, long time. I would not sign a contract with anyone. WWE asked me to sign a contract when I went back with the Wyatts, and they offered me a lot of money to close House of Hardcore, and I refused. Impact Wrestling, I worked there under a lot of different regimes. Once politics or BS started getting involved, I just left. And I've been friends with Scott D'Amore for a long time. I've been friends with Don Callis for a long time. I have no issues whatsoever, and I'm not a very, very hard person to deal with. I wanted people to deal with me how I deal with them, and I'm a man of my word. And so far everybody, and I expect it to always be that way. So I'm cool, and how I balance that with just handshake agreements, because I'm a man of my word, and I've proven that for a long, long time. Stipulation. It's funny, in a business that is predetermined, I've always lived up to my stipulations. When I was in WWE and I said, again, Zack Ryder, if I lose this match, I'm leaving ECW. I would never go back to ECW ever again. In Impact Wrestling, I wrote Hardcore Justice. My selling point was me versus Raven, and I will never wrestle him again. I've been offered to wrestle him on Indies. Won't do it. I also said, same pay-per-view, I won't do anything ECW reunion anymore. I didn't. I feel it's important to be a man of your word. I hated growing up as a kid seeing, loser will retire, and then they just come back. So that's just me. At times I feel like I'm alone in my feelings, but if people don't like it, sorry, that's just how I am.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Ryan Bowman from thegorillaposition.com. You just talked about when you got started in the days of the magazines and newsletters. ECW was kind of built up through that as a grassroots movement and word of mouth. And you were discussing Twitch and the other platforms you're using with House of Hardcore. In hindsight, how big of a fire would ECW have set to the wrestling industry if it had existed in the era of social media?
Honestly, I think we'd be out of business. And here's why. Everything we did in ECW, most of it was illegal. Music, which was such a huge part of ECW, we wouldn't be able to use. And if you want to talk about conflicts and dramas, I mean, we would have riots all the time. Now think of the era of the cell phone camera. Think of the era of the cell phone camera when we would, after shows, party with fans, or have fights in bars, or even think about if all the stuff went down with, the owner not paying people, or even writing bad checks. That's illegal. And I said it on the WWE Network. A lot of people want to bitch and moan about Paul Heyman, but most of them chose to stay. And a lot of others never had anywhere else to go. But to answer your question, I don't think it would exist whatsoever. You could not today pick up a wrestler, a bloody wrestler, and throw him into the crowd and expect people to body surf him everywhere. You would be sued up the yin-yang for that. And I mean, you know, when I get back to the music, I know for a long time, and when WWE put out all the, you know, some of the ECW stuff, they were like, oh, they left out New Jack, and there were certain websites, you know, saying they left out New Jack. How could they do that? Oh, because he had criminal records or all this stuff. It was just because all of his music had all of his matches had illegal music going on through the entire time. So to answer your question, I think we wouldn't have made it as long as we did. Balls Mahoney getting on an airplane in his underwear and then his forehead starts bleeding with no shirt on. You couldn't even do that now. 9/11, you got to wear a shirt.
Hi, Tommy. It's Rory from Team Venom Media in the UK. I'm quite looking forward to your match with Eddie Edwards this weekend. Can you tell us how that stacks up against some of your classic feuds and lineups?
I didn't hear the last part. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. How do you compare Eddie Edwards to some of your previous opponents and classic feuds?
Oof. He's a way better wrestler than Brian Lee or Raven is, his in-ring. And I have feuded with a lot of people. Eddie Edwards has all the tools to be any company's heavyweight champion. So I look forward to our styles meshing. And, you know, even in Impact Wrestling, I just left WWE, so I was 38, maybe 39. And I had to step in the ring with AJ Styles. And that was for the first time in a long time. I was nervous because I knew how good AJ was. So I know how good Eddie Edwards is. So I have to step up my game too, because trust me, I still have a chip on my shoulder. And here in the States, we have a pitcher named Bartolo Colon, who's 2 years younger than me, and he's having a pretty good season. Or you look at Tom Brady, who's the best quarterback in football. He's in his 40s. So I'm going to keep on going and plugging away. Eddie Edwards is beyond talented. He reminds me of Lance Storm, just incredible. Eddie Edwards is good, and I'm going to have to be just as good.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Hi, Tommy. It's Morgan Richards here from Radio Cardiff. Pleasure to speak to you. How are you doing?
Good, man. What's going on?
So what I want to talk to you about is that you've trained so many performers and stars across the business without being really credited that much as some of other people. For you, is that just a really thing you're very proud of and giving back to a new generation, just seeing so many stars now at that top level that you've helped?
Absolutely. I couldn't be prouder of the men and women that, you know, I helped along the way. I don't need the recognition that, you know, they're giving me. But here's also why I do it. I don't think a lot of people realize how many people Terry Funk helped, or you hear how much Dusty Rhodes has helped. When I used to walk back as a 24, 25-year-old kid, I would have Terry Funk helping me. I would have Mick Foley helping me. I would have Paul Heyman helping me become better. So I remembered that. You know, Paul Heyman never had to bring a 22-year-old kid into the studio to teach him how to edit a show. We all can be fantasy bookers, but then we're sitting there talking about how to draw money, how to do all this stuff, and see the business aspect of it. So for me, I've been blessed. And, you know, where Bubba and Devon said about, you know, the Hall of Fame, you know, for me, pretty much putting them in ECW or, you know, Lita, I just tell people the truth or what they want to do to take their careers to the next level. And I've been blessed to help a lot of people. And when I turn on television, it's kind of I have like these giant arms or tentacles if I was an octopus, and I reached out to a lot of people. And I am very, very proud of everybody that I helped. And, you know, some made it, some didn't. But the reason why I believed in a lot of people is because I saw something in them. I don't ever judge a book by its cover. There are so many talented men and women out there that, you know, WWE would pass us upon. And even when I was in WWE, when I basically ran what was NXT, you know, it was the developmental system between OVW and Deep South Wrestling for a little bit. There would be so many, and I remember some of the directives that were given to me, and I was just like, ugh, this is horrible. But I was able to fight for people, and you need people to fight for you, but not just in wrestling, just in every corner. Here in the States, I'm a big baseball fan. Mike Piazza was like one of the last guys drafted. The only reason why he got drafted was because his father was friends with Tommy Lasorda, who was the Dodgers manager. And then he went on to become a Hall of Famer because he had the talent, but he just had to have somebody notice it. So that's kind of how I was, and still am, and always will be.
Amazing. Cheers, Tommy. Looking forward to your match on Sunday.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Tommy. This is Shivan from Sportskeeda. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good, too. So, Tommy, I would like to ask you, from the current crop of Impact Wrestling superstars, who do you think has the best shot of or deserves to be called the next hardcore legend?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I would like to say that the term hardcore has been bastardized by the WWE in the sense of the word hardcore, people think about blood or tables or chairs. To me, hardcore is a work ethic. And, you know, hardcore was WWE's version of the word ECW. And in ECW, we did every single thing we could to put on a great performance for the fans. So in Impact, I want to say every single wrestler would be hardcore because everybody goes out there and busts their butts to entertain the fans, no matter what situation they have been in. To answer your question for the hardcoreness of where I feel you're going, I would say Sami Callihan, and maybe Penta. And even though he's a luchador and he does a lucha style, but if you go and watch his stuff in Lucha Underground or even some of his stuff in Impact Wrestling, he gets pretty hardcore. So those are my two guys who say in Impact Wrestling.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Tommy, we'll segue from that question to a pretty similar one from David Fowler, who writes, what are your thoughts on the current Impact roster? How would you size up the potential future stars, meaning someone a star in 5 years?
I think if you look at first of all, kudos to Impact Wrestling for having a sellout, which is amazing. And if you think about, and I know, Ross, you've been with the company a long, long time. I've been in and out of the company. There's a lot of times you couldn't give tickets away. And now, legit sellout. And that's because of management change, which is excellent, and having new talent, new influxes of talent, and working with other organizations. This is an insane time in the wrestling industry because I know you're a sports guy. Technically, this is wrestling. You could play for a day game with the Mets because you're under contract with them, but then you could go play a night game with the Yankees. There are people who are, under contract in Impact Wrestling, and they're under contract with other organizations like Lucha Underground. So the fact that a working relationship has been formed because it benefits the fans. It benefits everybody. I'm a huge fan of LAX. I think they have such amazing talent. And Brian Cage, another guy, though he's a pain in my ass on my House of Hardcore shows because he texts me every second. And I want to say the biggest impact I feel will come out of the women's division with Tessa Blanchard. She is money, and she has signed a long-term deal with Impact Wrestling. And I have never heard such a buzz about anyone in the industry, especially a female, coming off of, like, you know, everyone talks about the Mae Young Classic, who's the next star. I just did something with the show Busted Open, which I'm a co-host on, and I did a thing of who would you pick as your top 5 talents if you owned a wrestling company, and 80% of those people said Tessa Blanchard. So kudos to that young lady because she's got the world buzzing about herself.
Hey, Tommy, this is Carl Carafel with the J&K Podcast, a Collar and Elbow brand sponsored podcast, and on the Roar Network as well. Now, I asked this question of Austin Aries yesterday, and I want to ask it of you as well. Before I retired from active competition, I had a superstition where I had to wear the exact same pair of socks in every single match. Now, not really hardcore, but do you have any superstitions? Or if you don't, what's one of the most outrageous ones that you know from another worker?
I have a boatload of superstitions. Back in the day, I would only change my ECW shirt if I got hurt in a match. Then I wouldn't wear that shirt. And I'm not saying same exact shirt. I'm saying logo shirt. I, back in the day, used to have the same underwear I would wear on a Friday show and then the next day I'd wear my Saturday underwear. They were a teal thong, so a lot of those crazy hardcore matches, the Innovator of Violence was wearing a teal thong that basically fell off my body one day because I wore it so much. I wear the same socks all the time until they dissipate, but they have to be extra thick socks with a red trim. And for a lot of wrestlers in every wrestling company that I work for, no. I have old school knee wraps that have not been washed since 1995, and my knee braces have not been washed since 1996. And I also have the same way I get dressed. And if I've been to a building before, I have to sit in that exact same position in the locker room because that's why my longevity continues. And I'm crazy.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess the only follow-up question off that was, does anybody even want to sit next to you in the locker room?
You shut up. I will Mr. Sacco your face when I see you with my knee wrap.
Hello, Tommy. This is Aaron Barble from Wrestling Inc. Thank you so much for doing this. Now, the theme of this has been hardcore wrestling, so I thought I'd follow up with another one of those questions. Now, there's a lot of hardcore wrestling going on that people are carrying on. Do you consider any type of hardcore wrestling going too far when it comes to gimmicks or weapons? Like, what would you consider is the line?
I would be a hypocrite to say, oh, you can go too far, because I was the guy who would walk into a building and be like, I'm either going to get thrown off of there or I'm going to throw somebody off of there. But like I said, we've learned different things. Chair shots to the head should never happen in professional wrestling again. No one should be having hardcore matches unless the other person that you know has a blood test. You know what I love about wrestling in Louisiana? They have a blood test. And if there's going to be a commission, you should have a blood test because guys bleeding. Light tubes are ridiculous, Here's why. Inside, there's cancer carcinogenics inside it. So once you break that in, you're breathing in cancer. So that's stupid. And so I would say there you go from that aspect. You have to and you know what? And if you look at it from horror films, there are people who like scary movies. There are people who like super scary movies, and there's people who like gore movies, which are just out there for blood and guts and all that stuff. It's to each your own, but there has to be certain precautions because you have heard of, by the way, there's something called hepatitis. You've heard about a wrestler that got arrested who was doing hardcore matches when he knew he had HIV. And, that should never have happened. So there you go.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Tommy, how you doing? Looking forward to your match with Eddie Edwards. Any other matches on the card here that have you curious and pique your interest of you got to watch it when you maybe head to the back, or you're curious about, just in general?
I will watch all of them. I have this weird obsession with professional wrestling. I know Penta and Sami Callihan will be amazing. They have wrestled before and beaten the living crap out of each other. The history between LAX versus the OGs could be very, very cool. And I think Tessa Blanchard and Allie is going to be really, really good for the women's division. And that four-way of Rich Swann, John Morrison, or Johnny Wrestling, I have no clue what his name is today, Ishimori and Ray Phoenix. Ray Phoenix is another guy. I've used most of the people on this show, and this is the reason why this show is sold out is because of the people on this card, and these are some really good matches. The greatest compliment I could ever do for my own company is I book you on a show, and I look at all these names. I was like, yeah, I've booked pretty much every single person on this show. So that's kudos to how talented these men and women are.
Hey, Tommy, Ryan Bowman from thegorillaposition.com again. You talked about a lot of the changes that have happened, not only in Impact, but in wrestling in general. Heading into Slammiversary this weekend, looking back over your career, what's the one thing that's changed that you're the happiest about, and what's the one thing that's changed that upsets you the most? And thanks for your time today.
The change that I'm happiest about, like I said, the betterment for the professional wrestler. I feel that's very, very key. I know I have my own goals with my own company, but the fact that, also that all these companies are working together. If you don't work together, you will not survive in today's climate. WWE leads the way. Cool. They have their own vision. Impact Wrestling has their own vision. They have their own fans. They have their own different management style. So does House of Hardcore. All these people are working together. Why? For the betterment of professional wrestling. So how could you not get behind these guys? Something that's worse is the BS and the politics. I know that's my company's mantra, and I know because I've talked to them, Scott D'Amore, Don Callis. Hell, Don Callis works for New Japan Pro Wrestling. They are trying to get rid, and they're doing a great job of all the negative funk that has been through the years of Impact Wrestling and trying to get away with the BS of it. And a lot of people want to deal with the behind-the-scenes crap, and the internet wants to jump on that, as opposed to, they're putting on a really good product today. I know this because they let Bobby Lashley out of his contract. And look what Bobby Lashley's doing in WWE. And you know what? Great for Bobby Lashley, but also great for Impact, because then it opens up a spot for someone like a Pentagon to come in back or, debut in Impact Wrestling. Or it opened up a spot for Tessa Blanchard. She turned down a spot to go to WWE to work in Impact Wrestling. So stuff like that is what I love about wrestling. and the BS and the politics are what I do not love about wrestling, because there is a bunch of men and women in WWE that are being wasted, and they can make a huge difference in Impact Wrestling, in House of Hardcore, and throughout the wrestling industry. And I wish they were able to just go out there. You know what? We're not doing anything with you. Go over there. Because that's what happened in wrestling in the 80s. You would wrestle for a long time, and then when they had nothing for you, go somewhere else and come back in 6 months to a year. And then, boom, look at Drew McIntyre. Look what greatness he's doing. So I love stuff like that, but I hate the politics.
Hey, Tom, it's Morgan Richards here from Radio Cardiff again. I just wanted to ask you, of course, you've mentioned a lot about Terry Funk and being in the business, what you've seen over the last 30 years. But when it does come to that time where you feel you want to retire from competing, do you think you just want to do it less and less, gradually going out with the business, or have a giant send-off?
Me personally, when I feel it's time, and someday I just got off of a 31-hour flight, and in that flight I retired at least 6 times and had about 2 breakdowns. So for me, I'm going to do my own farewell tour, and I'm going to go visit a bunch of places that I've been before, and then I'm going to use that as a selling point of, hey, you're not going to see me wrestle ever again, and then I'm out. And I will probably have one big match somewhere and then call it a career.
Well, hopefully we get to see a lot more in the ring very soon.
Thank you. I have 7 shows this week. I don't want to wrestle anymore. I'm friggin' old.
I'm going to go to a question here from Brendan Boyle. Who is your dream opponent that you have never stepped in the ring with?
Past would be Ravishing Rick Rude. Present, Triple H.
Alrighty. Well, Tommy, with that, we'll wrap it up for you. I know I can speak on behalf of all the media. We're very appreciative. Certainly great to talk to you, a legend in the business. I will open the floor for you at this point to give your final thought heading into Slammiversary.
I just want to say thank you for everyone for being a part of this journey with me. Like I said earlier, to be a featured match on one of Impact Wrestling's featured shows, I am proud of every single match I've ever had in Impact Wrestling. And to still be doing this and still be at this level and have people still interested in Tommy Dreamer, I'm blessed. I always say we are a family. I also always say that I'm just a fan that got fortunate and somebody believed in me. And the fact that I'm still doing this, I'm going to give you all that I have. I wrestle every single match like it's my last, because I know one day it will be. And just thank you for supporting Tommy Dreamer, House of Hardcore, Impact Wrestling, and supporting wrestling. I love you guys just as much as you love me.
All righty, Tommy. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you up in Toronto. Are you going to get up there? I'm guessing with 7 shows this weekend, you're not going to have time to get up for a Blue Jays game.
Unfortunately, I have way too many shows this week. I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So I'm out there.
All right. Well, we will see you in a couple days up in Toronto.
Look forward to it, bud. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Tommy.
Bye.
Q&A session is over.
Q&A session is over.
Goodbye.